So before we get into questions, I'm inviting Immaculate to come forward. She's prepared a response to the presentation that we just saw, just to add a little bit more juice to the experience and some more things for us to think about. So, Immaculate.
Thank you so much, Mike. This is an incredible opportunity for me to have met Sheila yesterday, to listen to her speak about such an important and urgent topic of our times, and that cuts across sectors, AI and democracy. So thank you so much, Sheila, for speaking this afternoon. I am going to follow your keynote address with a brief discussion. So unlike other topics, this topic you've presented about is so much about us humans, about our ontology, about what we should defend as humans, about the boundaries and connections with those entities and products, the materials, the machines, and the technologies which we humans have presented. Now, I won't repeat much of what you've said, but I will highlight some ideas that I found intriguing, and I do have questions and wonderings too, so I'll present those. So to begin with, and I have more slides than probably I need to be showing, but I will do show some. You spoke about the promise, and you began off with a pessimistic understandings by many. And I use many here to imply that not only the skeptics, but also some of the people that have been the producers of technology. And you did show us about what should we worry about. I did really like the slide there where you really went into who rules, and that touches democracy. Behavior impacts on the youth, on the teenagers, and who are the ruled? The majority, perhaps the 99%, and also you went further into looking at the economics of these intelligences. And then touching on democracy again, you went to the constitutional issues, and it's the ontological surgery, that classification that comes with that. That was, for me, touching the humanity, that we humans who have created these machines, and raising a question: what does it mean to be human? What does it mean anymore to be classified as human? And then you went on to look at, speak about the traps. So I did bring with me quite an old book. I didn't have to do any printing and waste paper. It's not one that I bought. It's a 1980 book by Seymour Papert. And he talks about artificial intelligence in there, 1980. He defines artificial intelligence, and he talks about good and not good definitions of artificial intelligence. So then you make a connection in terms of why the panic now? When this was foreseen by scholars, by fiction, in movies, that humans were creating machines that we are going to be intelligent. So Seymour Papert does define intelligence as that what the machine does, and this is almost 50 years ago, that if a human did it, it would be considered intelligent. That's one of his definitions in there. Now you go on to talk about the traps, and the speed trap is one that I found, that's where I find many of us educators thinking. So many of us educators want to slow it down. Like, this came so fast. Probably last year was the rollout, and on many fronts. So while in higher education we're thinking about ChatGPT, the youth, the teenagers, on their cell phone, they could have on an app a character, a friend who is an AI that they go to and have conversations and ask questions. So that's speed trap. Who puts on the brakes? And for who? For the ruled or for the 1% that is ruling? Now, you also spoke about the puzzle and the recurring concerns, the loss of control that we are feeling, educators, professionals. Now, yet, this has been around for a long while. So then AI is inviting us to ask what it means to be human, and also to reflect on the political economies of intelligence, especially as seen in their impact on access and freedom of expression. So again, you touched a bit about that when you spoke about who is ruled, especially those who use social media, and how they're ruled and the impacts on them. And so it makes us ask, when we talk now about freedom to act in democracies, freedom of expression. Is it actually freedom? Is everything accessible when the algorithms are AI? And this is not hidden. Algorithms are AI, and they iterate, and they do produce who has access and who has the freedom of expression. So it's not for all. It's really controlled by those algorithms. Now, you went on to speak about the body, which I found the sacred, the human, the memory, and what AI does to that in ways that are enhancing. So technologies are meant to be enhancing. So if our memories are put together, collective enhancement, the databases, we've been looking at those things as things to celebrate. But what is sacred? What should be sacred? What should be protected? Perhaps what's good, or what would benefit from not being in the realm of that which is downloaded to AI. And so there's some more of panics, I think, that are really we should panic in a way if we are touching the sacred. If we are touching the sacred, and some of the sacred could be the culture. So I won't go more into the synopsis. I would skip over and really touch on where you spoke about the intelligences, and did quote the work in education of Howard Gardner. And then that prompts us to think about what are the issues in our professions, what are the issues in what we do. And of course, the issues, ethics, and you did speak about transparency, the issue of transparency in technology, and what are the impacts of AI intelligence. Now, in terms of speed, that's where you tied in human control, like the deliberate control, and some of the inclusivity and boundaries. And I find that that's really important in light of DEI or EDI, decolonization, as well as indigeneity. Where should we be putting the control? Where is slow science, and where should slow science and the work of the profession and the work of the human be celebrated? Again, those boundaries. So the ideas that you did speak about before I really ask what I feel is debatable and my questions here, the ideas resonate with the work in teaching, in research, in leadership, in the academy, and also in life, and general learning in life. So the use of AI in higher education, as we are located in higher education, is a big topic. But that topic I won't speak about in my discussion, because that's the topic of our keynote address tomorrow, AI and education. So for my discussion, I will focus mainly on the young learners. Now, moral panic about AI tools as tools to think with has happened by both proponents and opponents of inventing and using AI, and I think it's rightly so. And I think that's what your topic was about, that we are panicking a little too late, but rightly so, especially in light of democracy, rightly so that we panic. So in my research, I do touch the material and the tools to think with, to use in learning and teaching and in curriculum. And so one would say, okay, you are integrating technology in learning, you shouldn't be panicking, you should be celebrating AI and introducing it in education full speed, But from your talk, we hear that full speed for what? Humans, full speed for what? We are inventing something smarter than humans. We are introducing something smarter than humans in education. So as part of the answer and part of the job in education for me and my research team, some of whom are here and collaborators, is to help younger learners to become aware of the issues, consequences, and implications of AI. And another part that we do, which we feel is also necessary, is to help demystify AI, so students understand how AI does work. So we do this through the work of computational participation, and we draw from the work of Yasmin Kafai, and Yasmin Kafai herself draws from the work of Seema Papat in 1980, when people were celebrating computers and apps on computers. We never used to call them apps then, but utility tools on apps. They were celebrating to put them in the hands of learners, let's say to design PowerPoints, to type text, and now was being celebrated. Now, Seema Papat was one of the people who said, you know what, it's a tool to think with. It's a tool of intelligence. It's a tool for them not to be consumers. And in your presentation, you spoke about that positioning of the majority. So it's a tool to think with. It's a tool that doesn't have to be a black box. It's a tool that has to be demystified. So Papa does draw from that to talk about computational participation, that we don't have to use it, the learners don't have to use it as only users, but it can help them participate. It can help them participate in the moment and now. To do what? To solve problems, to design systems, to understand human behavior in the context of computing. And so how do we do that in class? What does it look like? What might those experiences of computational participation look like for children learning curriculum? And so we do assess the effect of CP on how learners understand curricula, whether in real life or in curricular context or in elsewhere. And we see how they participate in making with or of their worlds. So AI, even when we are in a moral panic, can be used to help students think about those ideas that we are grappling with today, ideas of transparency, ideas of ethics, ideas of impact, ideas of where do we need control, what should be controlled, what should we be worried about, what are the issues that we should be worried about. So then computational participation is the idea of learning by acting, by participating in their world. And some people have taken it on to say it's by making their worlds and not letting those machines and the gadgets that they use make it for them. So of note here is that democracy is at the heart. No, democracy at its heart is about the right and the freedom to participate, to access, to act, and to have impact. Again, impact outside the impact generated by the algorithms, but impact in the real world. So Kafai herself then is really looking at how do we democratize these intelligences? How do we democratize these computational literacies? That's the work of DISESA, including AI. How do we engage the students in making with these tools? So we, in this particular project that I'm drawing examples from, it's in school and out of school, it's with communities and in teacher education, and in between there, I've mentioned our supporters, partners, and our funders. So democracy then may be seen as a choice and the right of freedom to participate, rather than a coercion to participate or an exclusion. And so in classrooms, what do we do with kids? Like, how do we translate this to children? So in modeling our experiences for computation, they're exploring in designing, coding, STEM, and of course, recently AI. And we are really speaking about the concepts, methods, and tools, and trying to bring them to them in learning contexts. And so what do students end up doing? They end up, of course, thinking, creating. These are tools of intelligences, and they end up doing more. But what's important here that AI has added for us, because with AI, students don't just need to do like they would with coding. They need to think about the broader issues in real life. So then they have to discuss and collaborate. And what has helped us do that is when they're thinking in context of like storytelling projects and real life, and they're designing. And I'm going to be able to show you a few examples in images. So these are children coding and playing image recognition in a program that they would have already used in Scratch, which is used in curriculum in Ontario. And they're playing these games, but they've also coded them. So it's no longer a matter of playing, they have to participate. They've coded them, they're designing them, and in this case, they're playing rock, paper, scissors, where the computer can recognize the hand gestures, and they've had to code that in. Another example is the robots themselves, and they would have done the robots and the materials, but here they begin with prototyping a robot. So there's a problem. They would think a technology will help them solve it, or an AI technology. So then they prototype it, design it, using design technology. Sometimes they assemble robots, and then they imagine a scenario. So they would imagine a future scenario where that robot or AI would be helpful, but then we are prompting them to think about the setting. What might be the setting? Who might be the characters? Who might be the story, the benefits, and the issues? And I think the issues is where that's important. So they think about the issues. So you have them beginning of saying, but we need an AI will help with tasks at home. We need an AI who will help with the environment. We need an AI for emergency purposes. But when they begin to design an environment, put that AI in, sometimes simulate it in a scenery on screen or on a digital tangible on augmented reality, they're beginning really to think about the issues. What might go wrong with this guy that would have created? What if it doesn't work? What if it ends up doing something different? And I think that's where the democracies, we are beginning to say kids can also think about the issues. Kids can grapple along with us. And kids are no longer not to be excluded. Kids now are already included by default because they're already users. They're already using these tools of intelligence. So CP, computational participation, is a democratic initiative in itself, and that comes across when we begin to grapple with questions of AI. So these ideas that I've shared here, of course, are applicable in the Ontario context, but they make me wonder. And the ideas, many of the ideas you've shared, intriguing as they are, they're applicable in the North American context. It does make me wonder about other contexts, non-North American contexts. And you gave an example there of a person in Europe who challenged Google about what had remained on the internet. So I wonder how they are applicable in informal contexts where different intelligences are valued. And so your work on showing us intelligences was helpful in cultural contexts, in non-traditional contexts, in context of groups of people and regions on the margins of advancement and commercialization of technology. The people were not beneficiaries of the economies of technology. How are these ideas that part of your talk applicable in those contexts? So in ending, I acknowledge that these are still small steps in projects in classrooms by us and by other people who are attending today who do similar projects of using tools of intelligence and questioning them and grappling with them with kids, with students. These are really very initial steps, small steps. While AI is taking very large leaps and speedy steps at the moment, everyone is going full speed. And here you did introduce the idea of determinism and also some other traps that we have to be careful about. Now, the hope for us is that learners are quick to notice. Learners once engaged are quick to reflect on such ideas, and they do notice things such as, although not so much as the sacred, but the differences between the material and what should be sacred as human. So exploring the possibilities of AI and indigenous knowledge systems is one of those topics where you wonder, how is AI related and how is these ideas, are they related? Now that topic in particular is a keynote address for tomorrow in the afternoon, and I won't touch on that in terms of reflecting on that. So the challenge is immense, as you've shown us, Sheila. And I end my discussion of your work with two other scholars. So one of them, actually two other thinkers, rather than referring to them as scholars. One of them is Astra Taylor. She writes in her book, "Democracy may not exist, but we'll miss it when it's gone." So I think rather than debating degrees of democracy, rather than debating where democracy exists or doesn't exist, AI has brought us full circle, and your talk has shown us this very well, that rather than debate democracy, it can be at threat. And should we defend it? Is it worth defending? And this book in particular, and your talk today, Sheila, showed us that, yeah, democracy is worth defending, at least from the machines we humans have created. Now, another thinker is Steve W.O. King, and he mentioned two things he didn't want to imagine knowing. Now, one of them I haven't mentioned here, but the other one is creating machines that are smarter than us. He didn't want to imagine that will ever happen, creating machines that are smarter than us. And that's where we are, and makes me wonder about what in other contexts they might wonder about in AI and intelligence. Let's say in contexts where the democracies are being threatened. What do they want about this AI and its economies? What do they want about AI and its trap? What do they want about AI and its impact? What do they want about AI and its implication? And maybe they're wondering if they too could get caught up on the economies of artificial intelligence, but perhaps not. So that's where I end my discussion, Sheila, and I know we will proceed on to the question and answer session, but it's been a great opportunity to listen and hear you speak today, and also to be able to do react and discuss what you've spoken about. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone. We'll proceed to the next session. Thank you.